derive their legitimacy. It inexorably means, therefore, that when a nation has a flawed constitution, every norm in that society will be in danger of also being flawed. It follows, logically, therefore, that any meaningful effort to build a new society must necessarily begin with an honest process in which the citizens and the political class of that society come together to make for themselves a new constitution that will govern their actions and direct their paths going forward. Presently, Nigerians are almost unanimously agreed that the 1999 constitution is flawed. What is still being debated is whether the constitution should be amended or changed completely. This is the key question that our panelists and guests will be essaying to provide insights and answers to this evening. With the stellar cast of panelists, guests, and moderators that we have assembled here today, I look forward, as I'm sure we all do, to a dispassionate but robust dialogue that inspires ideas and discussions around the best approach towards emerging a citizens-driven constitution for Nigeria. Distinguished panelists, guests, moderators, members of the fourth estate of the realm, ladies and gentlemen, let me once again welcome you most warmly to this inaugural dialogue of the Fixed Politics Dialogues. Thank you and welcome. It is now my pleasure to invite the chairperson of Fixed Politics, Dr. Obiageli Obi Ezekwesili, to please come and address us. Thank you. Is Dr. Obi with us?
Yes, she is.
Thank you very much. Finally, I am so delighted to welcome every one of our guests to this very important inaugural session of the Fixed Politics Dialogue. We're focused on the 1999 Constitution, and we're asking, change or amend. And we're very excited at the cast of speakers that we have that will be speaking to citizens on their views regarding the 1999 Constitution. I will do a quick introduction of the context within which we gathered today. And it's to give you a brief on the fixed politics research and the findings that led to part of the activity of today. If you would move to the next slide. The fixed politics research was one that I embarked upon at the Robert Bosch Academy in Berlin, Germany, from 2019 up until early 2020. And the objective, the primary objective, was to study the relationship between the quality of politics on our continent and the prevalent poor economic attainment that we have seen, to establish a nexus. That the study was intended to offer findings for ideation, for design and execution of solutions that can fix Africa's politics and invariably Africa's governance and economy. And the study is actually Africa-wide, but with a particular focus on Nigeria. Yes? We're sorry for that delay in the slide movement. but I will try to solve that now. But so the summary basically is that it looked at the democracy as a principle and as a practice on our continent and our country, Nigeria, more specifically. You know the basic definition of democracy, and you know the fact that we practice the presidential type modeled after the United States democracy. So move to the next slide. And in the research, one of the key ideas was to look at this correlation between democracy and governance and to use that as a basis of evaluation of how well a democracy is doing or not doing. And so in the case of my study, I simply looked at did democratic decisions in a country reduce the number of poor people? Did it improve prosperity overall? Did it increase the productivity of people? Did it raise their life expectancy? Did it improve the delivery of basic services to people and to business? Did it increase the stock of social capital of that country? Did the rate of growth, economic growth, increase the income per capita, meaning the proxy with which we measure well-being or improvement in life of citizens? Did it increase social cohesion? These are the kinds of outcomes that democracy should produce in society. Move to the next slide. The next slide is one that you can find time to look at, but it just does some comparative analysis of the outcomes that are principle in the measurement of comparable attainment. And if you would look at it in more details later, you would see that we lag. Nigeria as a proxy for Africa lags. The next slide tells you what politics does, that on the continent, the research found that politics undermines citizens, families, communities, society, business, economy, and governance. And then the next slide you would see is the central thesis of the research, basically showing that the absence of good governance is the greatest obstacle to Nigeria's economic development. So the failure of the public leadership on the continent subverts the development of the continent, because public good is compromised for private interests. And the next slide is the key idea that there is something called the triangular pillars of democracy. And these three angles of this democracy determine ultimately the state of any country's democracy. There's the supply side being the politicians, the demand side being the electorate, then the regulatory side. It is the regulatory side that has made us call you to this event today, because as you can see, the regulatory side has got constitution, political and electoral law, and institutions. These three things work together to determine the state of any country's democracy. Move to the next slide. And then the research looks at the product of politics and governance. If it were in the market space model, if it were an economic modeling, then you would go from perfect competition where the outcome of politics is close enough to what the consumers find in a product that is market competitive, or it goes to oligopoly and it reduces in outcome and impact for the consumers. It goes to duopoly and it's almost disappearing, and then it gets to monopoly, and the consumer, being the demand side electorate in the case of politics, is completely they are in the well by that, they're in the hole by that time. So monopolistic structure of democracy is an aberration. But that's what we found in our analysis. So we say monopolistic democracy, which when you evaluate it, shows that there is a distortion because the outcomes of the democratic process are not going to the people. Therefore, in the market modeling, you would have a regulator step in and correct. But in Africa, in the political space, the regulator is totally not able to do so. It's not an effective regulatory system that can correct distortions in the democratic outcomes for citizens. Move to the next slide. So the argument then became that what do you, when you say monopolistic democracy, how about the fact that you have all kinds of parties, multi-plurality in parties, multi-party democracies, and we say, no, it doesn't have with the number of parties. It's about the dominant political culture that's at play, which is that the supply side of politics takes absolute control of the entire political space and pushes the demand side, being electorate, to the margins. And so we say, when the regulatory system fails, what then can happen? Because it means that you have a distortion. And to correct the distortion, somebody needs to act. The regulator, in the case of the African politics, as we analyzed it, cannot act because they are in the pocket or subservient to the supply side. That is the political class, the politicians. The demand side, being the electorate, is the only pillar in the triangle that can actually do something. And so that's the basis upon which fixed politics, as an initiative beyond the research, was founded. Move to the next slide. In that next slide, it simply tells you what an ideal situation would be. We would have to have, on the supply side, value-based political class. On the demand side, an empowered and engaged electorate. On the apex angle, we have to have new constitutional order, political and economic structures and change that would enable the outcomes of democracy to be favorable to citizens. And then my next set of slides basically tells you the kinds of things that you have to do to achieve that. And it says that structural problems require structural solutions. And you would get this slide, so you would be able to see some of the things we say about raising the influence of the electorate as being the solution to the matter of the electorate, not being on the margins of democracy. It talks about raising a new political class. And so we have today we have the Unconventional School of Politics, Policy and Governance, better known as SPPG. And then on the third structural solution, we've got this matter of mobilizing citizens to be a voice that would collectively demand for new constitution, political and electoral, as well as economic restructuring. So then we ask, who would lead this effort? Well, we end with a quote, and it's from Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. That's why you're with us today. And I will look forward really to having an engaging conversation. We believe that today's meeting is linear, but in reality, it will get exponential because with 30 steps taken, we will get to an exponential 1 billion. Because that's the premise on which we're founded, to enjoy scale and speed. I thank you so very much. And now I want to welcome my dear sister, Professor Rami Shunaya, who leads the work of the World Study Group 3 of Fixed Politics. Over to you, Sister Rami. Are you there? Yes, I can see you.
Yes, indeed, I am here.
Excellent.
Thank you very much, my dear sister, Dr. Obi Ezekwesili, the visionary and convener of the Fixed Politics Initiative. It's been a wonderful journey for all of us so far. Distinguished guests, participants, and members of the different working groups and teams in the Fixed Politics Initiative, it's a pleasure to welcome everybody. This event has been organized by the Work Study Group 3 of Fixed Politics. Is that upper tip of the tripod that you just saw, with the mandate to push for reforms in the legal instruments by which Nigeria is being governed, the Constitution and the electoral laws. As you know, the National Assembly is currently engaged in reviewing these legal instruments, and public hearings are scheduled to hold this week in various parts of the country on the Constitution. Now, Fixed Politics has made submissions to the National Assembly on this matter. Our position upfront, we should tell you, regarding the Constitution is that this constant tinkering with the Constitution is not what is needed. Rather, we believe that what is required is a totally new Constitution about which we can truly say, we the people, which is not the case with the 1999 Constitution. So it is actually in this sense that the change in our, the theme for today, the topic, say to change or to amend, we mean a total change, not a minor, or whatever, not change in the sense of adding to something, a total change. A total radical change is what we are looking for. However, we realize that a platform would be needed for the generality of Nigerians to express their opinions on this issue. And that is why this event has been organized. And we have brought people together, hopefully, who will be able to talk from the various perspectives that are represented among the generality of Nigerians. So therefore, Bumi Lawson and I, the co-chairs of the Work Study Group 3, and all the members of our group who have worked, I can say, hard to organize this event, as well as the support that we have received from the Secretariat, and indeed the whole of the Work Study Group. We are delighted to have all of you join us today. And we look forward to a truly engaging conversation that will be able to move us forward on this matter of our Constitution. So again, it's my pleasure to welcome you all. And I now invite Bumi Lawson to take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It is indeed an honor to be here and to introduce to you all our guests, our panelists today. We have selected very eminent personalities to discuss the topic of today, the 1999 Constitution, to change or amend. And I will give a brief introduction of each panelist, our panel one. To start off with our panel one. Our panel one has the Honorable Dr. Usman Bugaji. He's a pharmaceutical graduate from the Ahmadu Bello University Zaria with a master's in arts in African studies and a PhD in intellectual history, both at the Institute of African and Asian Studies, University of Khartoum, Sudan. He's a distinguished visitor in African Politics Program of African Studies, John Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies. He was a political advisor to the Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar and subsequently elected to represent Kaita Jibaya Federal Constituency in the House of Representatives from 2003 to 2007. He is a prolific writer on national and international issues and has published in both academic and non-academic journals and other medias. He is the founding chairman of Network for Justice, the convener of the Arewa Research and Development Initiative. You're welcome, sir. Our second panelist is none other than Ankyo Bridge. She is the convener, Niger Delta Self-Determination Movement. Through her organization, she assists with developing areas, documenting, cleaning oil spills, and fighting, to agitate for equality and justice through intellectual discourse, discussion, and negotiation for their rights. She also collaborates with other organizations from around the world. Ms. Bridge says, even if it is 100 people that become aware and are willing to get up and fight to agitate for equity and justice through intellectual discourse, discussion, and negotiation for their rights, it is better than having none at all. You're welcome, madam, to this dialogue. Mr. Folarin Falana, better known by his stage name Falz, is a Nigerian rapper, songwriter, actor, and lawyer. He was called to the bar in 2012 after graduating from the Nigerian Law School in Abuja. He is an alumnus of the University of Reading, England, and graduated with an LLB honors degree in law. Falz, during the NSAS process, called all Nigerian celebrities to join the NSAS process in Lagos, calling on government to end police brutality. Falz continues to be vocal about issues of social justice and accountability. Our panelist for panel number 1 is none other than Cynthia Mbamalu. Cynthia Mbamalu is the Director of Programs, Yaga Africa, a University of Jos alumna graduating with a law degree, LLB, and BL from the Nigerian Law School. She holds a Master's of Law, Comparative Constitutional Law from the Central European University. Yaga Africa is a non-profit civic hub of change makers committed to the promotion of democratic governance, human rights, and civic engagement. For our very first guest after the first panel before the first panel would be none other than Joyce Daniel, JD. She says, I am a citizen of the world and I am committed to raising whole thriving individuals and communities, but first in Nigeria. Wherever there is a chance to advocate for social justice, political and economic reform, I'll take it. It's no wonder that she's here today. And our second guest speaker immediately after Cynthia will be Dr. Saeed Husseini, who is a strong research professional with a Doctor of Philosophy focused on international development from University of Oxford. He holds a Master of Science degree in African Studies and a Bachelor's of Arts Political Science from the International Studies from Hope College. Our very first panel and first set of guests, you're welcome. And as I say that, I hand over to Joyce Daniel to give us our very first stop. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you so much, Pumila Sen. Thank you to the entire Fixed Politics team for inviting me. It's such an honor, such a joy. I feel like shouting like, yay! Thank you. This is what I live for. Nigerians right now, all over the world, not just within Nigeria, have this very strong sense of despondence right now. Despondence meaning, for those who may not know, a loss of hope, a loss of courage. And if there is one thing we can do to revive this hope, will be to engage and empower. And I'm borrowing the words that were in the slides shared a few minutes ago by Madam Obi Ezekwesili. If we will engage and empower, then we will, to a large extent, begin to solve that despondence. If we can make Nigerians have a sense of belonging, have a sense of being heard, have a sense of being a part of something, then it will go a long way in revitalizing our strength to actually be a great nation. We are 200 million people, well, according to statistics. That's a lot of power. That's a lot of opportunity. That's a lot of growth and development waiting to happen if we can eliminate despondence. It is for this reason that I do ask, advocate for the complete change of the present 1999 Constitution, which of course is right now the polls are going on right here with about 300 people in this hall, virtual hall, and 82% of voters right now are already saying the Constitution should be changed. This is like the general feeling of most people. So imagine if the National Assembly indeed puts together the paraphernalia required for this process to start. First of all, Nigerians will do this. somebody is listening. Okay, we can have some hope. Okay, let's watch. Maybe it will actually be. And right now, we all need that sense of, we need to breathe. We've been choking as if nobody's listening. So yes, we need to change the constitution. But the National Assembly is really not mandated with the power to change the National Assembly. It's the constituents, it's us, the federating units that have the power. So yes, set up the machinery and let's have that constituent assembly from the different federating units, the states or geopolitical zones as might be decided by us. And let's go forward together and get this brand new constitution done that will be etched in, buried in, that will be drenched with compassion, with empathy, with inclusiveness, and with mutual respect for each other as a people. Because when we ask Nigerians, do we really want to go our separate ways? The average Nigerian says, no, we are kind of better together, only when we can find best ways to work together. So yes, let's do this. Let's make it happen. We're not doing it for our children. No, we're doing it for us first. And our children will benefit from it. That in our day, in our time, we saw our country get better, starting by a new law, better for all of us. Thank you for this privilege. This is my intervention, and I look forward to the conversations of others.
Thank you, Joyce. And next up is Mrs. Amina Usman. Amina, are you there?
I guess.
Okay. Yes, I've been able to do that. Can you hear me? Good evening.
Good evening, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Amina Usman, and I'm a lawyer and who has so much interest in politics. So when I was contacted to speak about this topic, and I looked at it closely to amend or to change the constitution. First of all, I would like to say I'm a realist, and I like to see things, from very realistic perspective. And one of the things I thought, we've had this process before. In 2011, that's the 9th Assembly, 2011 to 2015, there was a proposal of this sort, for the amendment of the Constitution, which ended in shambles after, millions of naira that was dedicated to these processes was spent. And it wasn't possible. So one of the requirements for changing of the amendment of the Constitution, is having 2/3 vote of the State Assembly, and of course, being assented by the President. One of the things that, has been in dialogue for a while now is, how to try to remove that veto power of the President, which requires, him to assent even after the vote has been passed. In my perspective, and what I think really critically, it's easier to seek to first amend the Constitution than for a total change. Although this Constitution has been around for a while, there's so many things that are so wrong with the Constitution, from the electoral process, to gender, and so much more. And if you look at election and politics in Nigeria, it's important for you to, note the laws that guide politics in Nigeria, which first is the 1999 Constitution, second, the Electoral Act, and the third, from the INEC. And another one, which is not very official, which on my own, I'd like to add is the political parties itself, the party structures. Each party in Nigeria has their constitution. And I've been opportune to go through the PDP constitution as well as the APC constitution. If you look at this constitution, I wouldn't say, I don't know, I don't want to use selfish, but the constitution is as if it's more about the issues of the party, the roles of the party member than anything, that has to do with, collective progress of the entire nation. Because as you know, all political parties, their aim is, to drive the party forth and, win all the time. On the PDP, where, I was looking for, because I'm someone who has interest in gender, and I was looking for, places that, they might have probably, said something about gender under the PDP and APC constitution. To my surprise, there was none under APC, all through. There was none, even the quota, the figure, the percentage, the required percentage, there was nothing like that mentioned under the constitution. And if we are trying to tackle issues like this, which includes gender and a whole lot of reform in the political space, this has to also come from the party structure. There was nothing like that under APC, no concern of sort. Under PDP, although they said the party will support participation of women by encouraging their representation at all levels. Fair, at least they even mentioned it. But they said the party, in nomination for party offices, at least 15% shall be allocated to women. 15% is not even close to the required quota. 15% is too small, very small. No one is speaking about that. No one is talking about how can they change this in the party structure. And the constitution, although there are so many rules from the constitution that guides political party in Nigeria, but there is also a boundary to it. The constitution cannot totally tell the political parties everything or what they have to do. So in seeking to amend the constitution, there are other things we must put into perspective. Going further to talk about some of the constitution has given the power to the Electoral Act and the INEC, to create rules regarding the election. This same constitution, one of the things the constitution did not do is, it has put out rules, but there are some languages that are used which I feel they're very intentional. If you're a lawyer in the room, the constitution will say this, and I tell you, however. It's the word is used in the Nigerian constitution. It's very intentional. The people who draft the constitution, they were very intentional. They knew what they were doing, and a whole lot of things are just really selfish. And they made the constitution so rigid that it's so difficult to even try to do anything around it. I see it as something that is very intentional. So even after bringing out reforms that you want, passing it through National Assembly, is my time over?
Just
Hello?
about, you can wrap. Thank you.
Okay. If you take the reforms to National Assembly, what you need to, or the changes or the amendments that needs to be made, where the president or whoever is the president at that time, goes through that amendment and sees that, there are even some of the amendment that doesn't favor him, he would just refuse to assent to it. This has happened before. How can we change that rule of having the president to have a final say on the amendment of the constitution? Can the constitution be amended without the president assenting? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Amina. We now call on the first panel, the first moderator, Cynthia Mbamalu. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful conversations this evening. And I'm really happy we're having this conversation at this moment, because honestly, the fixed politics is about a people or citizen-centered reforms process. It's about the people leading the demand for change. And like Dr. Obi mentioned in her presentation, today we're talking about the regulatory pillar when we talk about triangular pillars of democracy. Because at the end, if the constitution does not work for the people, then there is a fundamental problem with the process. And interesting to listen to Professor Remy re-emphasize the importance of value-based politics and why fixed politics movement was initiated at the beginning. And Joyce and Amina, thank you. I mean, you're from my generation, I want to believe, talking about the need to inspire confidence in the people. And Joyce, that was a fantastic point. And Amina, a constitution that speaks to our issues, covers issues of diversity, inclusion. And this evening, we'll be having a powerful conversation. Three panelists on this panel, Dr. Usman Bogaji, we have Ankyo Briggs and Folarin Falana, popularly known as Fowles, the bad boy. Now, the conversation, it will be 2 rounds of conversation, but there will be one question that every panelist must respond to. And Dr. Bogaji, are you here, please, just to confirm that you can hear me? Because I'll be beginning with you, sir. Sir. Hello, Dr. Oh, perfect.
I've just been allowed to unmute, so
okay. Thank you so much, sir, and welcome to the conversation today. And question, it's just going to be straight to the point, and honestly more around true, false, but expanding on your response. And I'll begin with you because of your experience, having served in the National Assembly and also having been around in politics for a long period of time. In your view, the National Assembly has no direct powers. Does the National Assembly have direct powers to replace the Constitution? This is about true or false. And whatever your response is, please expand more on why your answer has been selected. But in responding to that, I would add a sub-question to that. When it comes to the Constitution, would you propose reforming the Constitution or replacing the Constitution? You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. Let me save time, but I would have wished to appreciate a lot of my colleagues that are here and to generally appreciate the effort of fixed politics. This is a very important dialogue, especially at this point in time. But let me go straight to the point. The National Assembly, if they so wish, they have the capacity and they have the law behind them if they really wish to change the whole constitution, because they are the lawmakers. They can remove or throw away this constitution and start a new one, because they are the ones who could make law. The problem is, constitutions are a product of their processes. In other words, it is the process that leads to the constitution that confers on it legitimacy. And at the moment, the National Assembly, even though they are elected, they do not have that legitimacy. Just like the executive arm of government doesn't have that legitimacy. Because when you become so far away from the people, and when the people are not quite happy, and when you don't listen to their cries and to their ideas, and when you don't engage them, you cannot get that trust. And that trust is what links, citizens to governance and make it smooth. So the point I'm making is, yes, they have the powers to do so, if they so wish, and I don't think they will ever want to do that. But even if they do so, there is still an issue of legitimacy. And it is the process. It's not even the product in itself. The process in the constitution making is far more important than the product, because it is that process that confers legitimacy. And this is why all constitutions start with, with the people. It is the people who voluntarily, give themselves that particular constitution. And as many of us here know, from the time of British imperialism to date, we have had, if my count is correct, about 11 different constitutions, including the 1999. And none of these constitutions was actually crafted under a free, unfettered atmosphere through the volition of the people themselves. It has either been done under the guidance, if you like, of the British imperialists, or it has been done under the military. And therefore, we have not yet given ourselves that particular constitution. And this is something that we are yearning. And this is something that is doable. But then the kind of people we have in the National Assembly, I don't think they even understand this kind of conversation. But for the moment, I think we have to continue engaging, and we have to push for change. If we can't get change, let's push for those critical amendments that will give the electorate that, if you like, that pressure or that power to be able to get to the final ultimate aim of every citizen, to be able to give himself the constitution. But let me also make two quick points, if they are going to be helpful. If it is any consolation, the difficulties we are getting in trying to give ourselves a constitution, the resistance we are getting, is not unique to Nigeria. Nations that have become the envy of their peers today have had to go through those kind of difficulties. So let us not think because we are having difficulties with our National Assembly, with the executive arm of government, with the kind of people we complain, we are in particular, any more disadvantaged than other countries. No, many countries have gone through. Some have to go to war on their own constitution before they eventually, get a constitution that they can call their own. If you look, and it's not, just in Africa, even in Europe. And I would want people who have time to read the history of Poland. Poland is one European country that went through hell to become what it is. And it's important that we get the lesson of Poland in trying to understand the struggle we are now engaged in trying to give ourselves a constitution and the resistance that we are getting. But I think the National Assembly has the power to, round up on this particular question, but I don't think they are in a position to do so. But we who know what we want must continue to engage. And when the opportunity for change is not available or replacement, we should be content with those critical amendments that will give us that incremental inch into the kind of position that we really want to be. This is my own take on this.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bugaji. You made very important points. It's not necessarily about the product, but the process. But to do that, we also need to think about the legitimacy of the National Assembly, and that's the resistance to constitutional reform is not unique to just Nigeria. We'll be coming back to you, sir, with another round of questions. And I'll be going next to our next panelist. Thank you so much, ma'am, Aniko Briggs, one woman I really admire and look up to. Ma'am, can you hear us, please?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. With your experience in demanding for socio-political change in the system and pushing for a Nigeria of our dreams, would you, in your view, would you agree or disagree that the Nigerian Constitution does not guarantee socioeconomic rights or make them justiciable? So does this Constitution guarantee socioeconomic rights, and does it make them justiciable? That is one arm of the question. The second part is also the general question. In your view, reforming, not replacing the Constitution is all that is needed. Do you agree or do you disagree? Thank you, ma'am. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. May I first of all really commend the Fix Politics program. I'm really very honored and humbled at the same time to be invited to be part of this discussion process. Now, first of all, before I go any further, can I say that my position is that we need a new constitution. We need a new constitution simply because the beginning of any constitution starts with we, the people. And so when you look at this 1999 Constitution, and it says we the people, already there is a fault there. And also the fact that when I look back, as I did a little bit of research for this program, I had to remind myself that since 1914, Nigeria, even before independence and up to this day, has had to go through up to 8 different constitutions: the Clifford Constitution, 22, Richard Constitution, 46, Macpherson, 51, Letatton, 54, 1960, at independence, 63, 79, and 99. And if perhaps we had gone ahead and started the implementation of the report of the Goodluck Jonathan 2014 National Conference, what would have eventually come out of the attempt to implement the report of that gathering would have been a new constitution. Now, what is a constitution, and what rights, or what is the effect of a constitution? A constitution is the ground norm. It is the ultimate. It is the highest law of the land, and the right to achieve this is actually given to you and I. It is our right as the electorate. It is not the right of the of members of the National Assembly. Members of the National Assembly are put there by you and I through us voting for them. And having voted for them, we have not given them or vested our constitutional powers in them to change the constitution on our behalf. The constitution should be changed by us. If it has to go through them or with them, that is acceptable. But definitely that the lawmakers may think that they have the right to disagree with the citizens if the citizens are calling for a new constitution. I disagree with that. Now, on the issue of the question that that you have posed, of course, definitely, if we're looking at the Constitution and trying to ascertain whether the Constitution is working for the people, the first set of questions that come to mind is that we have Nigerians today, and going back over a long period of time of agitation, we have Nigerians who today believe that Nigeria has a constitution. We have people who believe that Nigeria does not have a constitution. We have people who believe that the constitution needs to be amended. We have people clamoring for restructuring, of which I am one, I was one. And if we will only listen to that clamor, perhaps starting with a new constitution would be part of that beginning of the restructuring. Then, of course, there is now, out of frustration, I must add, that we have people who are clamoring for secession and outright breakup of the country. And I put the blame squarely on the shoulders of the fact that after the death of Abacha, and when Abdul Salami was holding onto power for a handover, if you like, that we found ourselves in a situation where a document emerged that was through a decree, what is known as Decree 24, and it was identified or christened the 1999 Constitution. Now, when you look through these 5 categories of positions I have mentioned to you, you will then see that because we have people who do not believe that we have a constitution, we have agitations by stakeholders, ethnic nationalities, and all the different peoples of Nigeria agitating for different things: ownership rights, resource control, ethnic identities, rights, devolution of powers, and all of those things. And so that begins to show you that there are issues that borders on the issue. There are issues that border on the fact that people feel that their issues are not being addressed. Now, if their issues are not being addressed, then they begin to make the demands that they believe will address these issues, i.e., a new constitution, i.e., restructuring, fiscal federalism, physical federalism, the issue of a secession, breakup, and the issue of self-determination begin to emerge. Now, coming from the Niger Delta and looking at the restructuring, it brings us to the age-long call of controlling our resources. The Land Use Act, which came in with the 79 Constitution and is also in the 1999 Constitution, the Petroleum Act, the Mining Act. These are all the things that have taken away the rights of the people to determine their future, to determine, someone mentioned the future of children, to determine the future of, in my case and in the case of a few others here, our grandchildren. Maybe in the case of you, Cynthia, your children. You know, so when we are looking at changing the constitution, I see the call for a new constitution as almost the last hope of staying together as different people of Nigeria. We have to take responsibility for Nigeria. We have to take responsibility for the future of Nigeria. All the different ethnic nationalities, whether they are Yorubas or they are Igbos, can exist. So many other nationalities, we each can exist on our own. There are countries that are less in number than, say, the Ndibu or the Yoruba ethnic nationality, or the Ijaw ethnic nationality, or Ogoni, and so on and so forth. So I do not believe that we cannot stay together, but I believe that we must agree on the principles of how we're going to stay together, on the rules of how we're going to stay together. And that brings us to the Constitution. The 1999 Constitution was not put together by you and by I. So if we're going to move forward in Nigeria, we have to accept that the 1999 Constitution is no longer working, it's no longer feasible. It has reached the peak, and people now know that it is a wrong document. It is, somebody said here that people who wrote the Constitution know what they were doing. Of course, they know what they were doing. We also should know what we're doing now. And that is really a call to save Nigeria, if you like. Because as I said, if we can all if we can all be on our own, if there is the possibility that we can stay on our own and we choose to stay together, we must have a position where we decide how we're going to stay together. We're talking about nepotism. We're talking about people. We're with a government that seems powerless to safeguard its people. We're with a government that finds it difficult to accept that it has to listen. It owes the electorate the responsibility to listen to the electorate and discuss with the electorate and find a way out. Look, I do not believe that majority of Nigerians want to leave Nigeria as a country, but I do know that majority of Nigerians, majority of my people anyway, coming from the Niger Delta, We want justice and equity. And definitely we're not going to have justice and equity as we have this constitution, 1999 constitution. So definitely the 1999 constitution does not answer to the socio-economic questions that we have raised since from the days of Adakaboro till the days of men and today. So I will hang my presentation. I hope that I have made some sense. I will hang my presentation for now.
Powerful contribution, Amma, and you've responded by saying the Constitution does not guarantee socioeconomic rights. And I love an important point you made on the need to, the central role the Constitution will play as the last hope for Nigerians staying together in unity as different peoples from different ethnic orientation, and the role the Constitution can play as a unifying force. But you were key on focus on highlighting the need for a new constitution that truly attends to the interests of the people. And I love the part you made about the role the people would play in the constitution review process, and that the constitution may not really be a reflection of the will of the people, which leads me to my next question to our next panelist. Mr. Fowles, Falana, are you here? Mr. Folarin Falana, are you here, please? Can you hear us?
Just to confirm that you can hear me, yes, I'm here.
Yes, I can hear you. You successfully achieved the fusion of entertainment and activism to demand for social, political important documents for us as Nigerians. So in your view, do you think, starting with a yes or no and then giving us your reasons for your answer, we, the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, do hereby make, enact, and give to ourselves the following constitution? Do you think this is a true reflection of the reality? Is this constitution truly a representation of the will of we, the people? That's the first part. And the second part is general question. In your view, reforming, not replacing the constitution is all that is needed. Do you agree? You have the floor, please.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for the question. I really appreciate the question. I think what I would like to say, this is my 2 cents on this entire matter. This discussion is very beautiful. It's very interesting, and I like the idea of it. I like that we're having it. But I want to say that what I genuinely think is that what we're discussing right now isn't the real concern right now. I feel like Nigeria, we're still very backward. We're being referred to as a third world country. But if you allow me, I would say we're even a fifth world country, a 10th world country. I'll tell you why. What we should be discussing in 2021 is, like you mentioned, things like, socio-economic issues. So like whether there should be more gender equality, things that are progressive. But we're here debating whether the National Assembly is doing what they should be doing. It's ridiculous, and I don't even understand why in 2021 we are still here. Now, the real issue that we should be discussing is the culture of impunity. The fact that there are no consequences for actions. The fact that anybody can do anything that they want to do and just do it and get away with it. That is really what we should be discussing. So we can be here today. We can be here today. Sorry, I'm trying to turn on my video. I don't know if, okay. I think there's something wrong with my settings. It might take some time if I dwell on that. But so maybe I should just carry on. Yeah. So what I was saying, yeah, the culture of impunity. Because, for example, the section 70 of the Constitution provides that the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission shall fix the salaries, and I'm trying to read directly now, and allowances of the National Assembly, of members of the National Assembly. And this means that, okay, whatever the commission says is what the National Assembly will be collecting. Abi, on paper, that's what it should mean. But in reality, of course it's not. Tell me why the Nigerian legislature is the highest paid legislature in the world. And Nigeria has the highest poor population in the entire world. it does not make any sense to me. Why do we even have, this is another discussion, of course, we'll eventually get there. Why do we even have two chambers, a bicameral legislature? Why do we even have that? Is it a waste? You know, these are issues that we can consider, but the real issue is even the fact that nobody is following the provisions of the law. No one is following the provisions of the law. If you are aware now, the courts are on strike. In which civilized society, is laughable, in which civilized society have the courts shut down for the last 7 weeks? Courts have not been sitting. So criminals, let me say accused persons, they haven't been convicted, that need to be tried, are there waiting, just being detained. Nothing is happening. Why? Because the courts are on strike. Why are the courts on strike? Because there's some certain provisions of the law that governors have refused to adhere to. So what is the real issue here? It's not the provisions of the Constitution. I'll be honest with you. The Constitution, yes, of course, it can definitely do with some nice changes here and there. But as it stands right now, if it was properly adhered to, we wouldn't be in such a mess. We would not be in such a mess. That's why somebody can say to you, and you know, this was basically the basis of the outcry last October, November, when the NSAS protest was ongoing. Why a policeman will look at a young person and say to you, I will shoot you and nothing will happen. Why will nothing happen? Because we live in a society where there aren't any consequences for actions. So how much more people that are there at the top? Of course, they wouldn't adhere to these rules. We have the provision of Section 81 that says that the president shall prepare and lay before the National Assembly the budget, and then the National Assembly will then, of course, debate. You know, that's how they came up with the concept of the appropriation bill. You know, the president will present that to the legislature. They will debate on it and they will send it back to the president. In any civilized society, of course, what happens is that they will look at this bill, 45 billion for this. No, it shouldn't be this. We'll cut this down to this. But of course, the opposite happens. And with the connivance of the executive arm of government, the legislative arm of government starts to find a way to manipulate these figures. And of course, for their own benefit. The same thing happens, you know, on the state level. And that's why we have all these issues. I think Dr. Lisa Agbakoba is supposed to be on the other panel. I have information that he's been in court and actually challenged the non-compliance with the laws on financial autonomy of the judiciary by state governors. He's won the case in court. Till now, they have still not complied. There has been another society that went to court, the judicial staff, some. They also won the case. Till now, the governors have refused to comply. That is why the ongoing strike is still on. In any democracy, in any place where the rule of law should be operating, there is what is called separation of powers. The executive arm of government, the legislative arm of government, and the judicial arm of government, all three must exist independently, and they must carry out all their functions autonomously. As is going on right now, we are so far from that. That's why a governor will buy a car for a judge, or will just gift him, you know, so amount, because of course they're trying to, you know, get decisions in their favor. And if we don't have any sort of system to control this, if there are no consequences for actions, if this culture of impunity continues, we can sit down here and debate whether we should change constitution today, whether tomorrow we will change constitution again, next tomorrow we will change another constitution again. But the same thing will continue happening. So what is the real problem is, how do we solve this issue of impunity? That is my 2 cents.
Thank you so much, Mr. Falana. I'm happy you were able to throw up lots of questions. And from your perspective, it's not necessarily about the changing or reform or replacement of the constitution, but even within the current legal framework, do we have elected officials accountable to the people by respecting the provisions of the constitution? And I love the reference you made about the autonomy of the judiciary, because if you also look at the state assemblies, the constitution was amended for their financial autonomy, but yet you have governors who have decided to package state assemblies in their pockets when we have a constitution. So this, I am glad you were throwing up this question, because we need to expand our conversation to truly looking at key provisions in the constitution and how to amend the constitution. Our next round, because we will be taking a session on question and answer, so I'll just need about 1 minute 30-second responses from our panelists. And I'll go back to Dr. Bugaji. Please, I hope you are still here with us. And you had started a conversation earlier around legitimacy of office, which is what is informing my next question to you, sir. If you can hear me, thank you. I can see you. Yeah, so the conversation around the oath of office of the president and other elected officials. Do you think, sir, that the oath of office is justiciable? Do you think that there's some level of respect to even the oath of office that our leaders have sworn to, and that you can hold them to account and even challenge their non-respect or non-regard to the oath that they have sworn at the point of election or assuming office? So I would like to hear your views, please, in 1 minute 30 seconds, just so that we can have time for questions. Thank you. Unmute, please.
It's not what, okay, good. It's working now. Perfect. Thank you very much. Now, of course, there are many issues, and I know we are pressed for time. The aspect of impunity is just an aspect of our political culture that we have to address. And there are certain things that constitutions alone will not be able to do, because constitutions are like legal documents, that this is permissible, this is not permissible, this is allowed, this is not allowed, and this is the process to be able to get this thing done. But what is it that makes people to really comply is beyond just the constitution itself, is beyond the law in itself. There has to be that social and moral ambience to do that. And that's what we call the political culture. And we need to address the political culture simultaneously, because it is the political culture that produce the values that drive behavior. At the moment, like we have seen, and like the last speaker, Falana, has made the point, there are many provisions of the current constitution. Our colleague Bakoba has even gone to court. Now, these things will continue because of the political culture we have, that has evolved. But what can we do to stop that political culture? How can citizens organize themselves to stop it? And these are some of the things, that we need to be discussing. They are important, because without them, even if you succeed in changing the constitution, if those who are operating the constitution refuse to comply, what do you do? And remember, part of what we have to address in the constitution is the fact that the appointment of for example, the IGP of police is done by the president and is removed by the president. Why should he be removed by the president? The mere fact that these things are allowed by the constitution allow these people to manipulate the police, because we have seen cases where the tenure of the IGP is being extended to the time of election, just for him to know that this is a favor for you. You should return this favor by doing what we want you to do. And the mere fact that the IG knows that the president can remove him, doesn't really make him to be as independent. I don't even mind if the president should appoint him, but he should not have the power to remove him. The parliament should have the power, and the parliament has to go through a process. That security that you give to the IGP allows him now to, if he's really he has conscience, to not be able to do the right thing. So these are some of the issues we should be looking at. But as far as I can see, issues you have raised are issues of political culture, and they are issues that we have to address, quite maybe in subsequent thing. But part of it also is that we have to address the minimum qualification for holding the responsibility. In the 21st century, you can't put the school certificate as the minimum qualification. I know they will resist if you try to do something else, but we must also resist because we have seen the consequences. Look at the kind of characters that we have. Look at the kind of things that are happening. Thank you very much.
Yes, yes. The quality of those we have elected, very important. Ma'am, quickly to you. I can see you on the screen. What do you think that this constitution would guarantee a truly free, fair, democratic elections? The constitution as it is, do you think it's possible? In a minute.
Well, I mean, since 1999, have we had free and fair election with this under this 1999 constitution? The 2015 election, Goodluck Jonathan made sure, even though it seemed to have been to his detriment, if you like, a situation where he signed up for certain things about the electoral law, and that worked against him. And I think that's what democracy should be like. It should not be for your sake alone, as a person or even as a politician. So no, we're here discussing the 1999 Constitution, and I believe that what we've been saying here, and even before this gathering, is that the 1999 Constitution is not working. It has not worked, and we now know how it came about. And we're saying that, look, let us change this Constitution. So if we amend the Constitution, how many times has this Constitution been amended? And have we been able to resolve the issues that the people are raising? No, I still believe, and that is my take from here for a very long time, that we do need a new constitution where all of us, all the peoples of Nigeria have contributed and have brought their issues to the table, where it has been discussed and carried along by everybody in the interests of the different people. If we do not change this constitution, we will be here in the next round of election, maybe after 2023, still discussing what is wrong with Nigeria. The answer, I believe, to the next phase of Nigeria, and whether Nigeria will continue the way it is or not continue the way it is, it's dependent on what we do about the 1999 Constitution.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So a new constitution for credible elections seems to be one of the proposals on the table today. We'll come back to you, Mr. Folarin, after the question and answer segment. So please hold your thoughts, because I can see we have some of our participants who have their hands up. We can take 3 and then I'll read. You can also drop your messages or comments in the chat box. So we'll read through some of them for the panelists to respond to. So I would start with, I can see Professor Abejide. I hope I'm pronouncing that well. You have your hand up. So if we can make this fast, just so that we can have as many people as possible. So please, Professor Abejide, you go first. And after you, will have Alexander Edu second.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Please confirm that you can hear me.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. My name is Abejide. I'm an associate professor of computer science at the University of Johannesburg. Grew up in Ekiti State, bred in Ekiti State, Nigeria. Only came here in 2013. So just a little bit of background. But I've been following Nigerian politics. I live here, but I'm always home every year, about 2 times, sometimes every year. And I want to thank my friend AY, who's part of the program for the politics that invited me to this occasion. I'm honored to be here. I've been listening, and I've heard quite a lot of arguments from everyone. I want to say I believe in the Nigerian state. It's just for me, it's the blend of the cultures that's just so beautiful. You know, an NYC was so special because you could move to somewhere else and experience something completely different with people that are still of the same culture. The argument of, is that a must? Should we always stick to that? If the constitution is not working, And like previous speaker spoke about the Niger Delta and the plight of those people, and even the plight of my people, because my people, I'm from Ekiti State, my people have always been safe. Now they don't feel safe in their homes with the herdsmen issues and everything. I do not believe that the togetherness, the sticker thing is a do or die, if you like it. I think it's like a marriage, you know. It's like, if it works, great, it's fantastic. If it doesn't work, then a divorce might be necessary. And if a divorce is necessary to stay alive, then everybody has to take it. Because Ghana, when you travel to Europe, you meet a Ghanaian. Sorry, I'm going to finish very soon. Let me just wrap up. In Europe, you meet a Ghanaian or whatever. You meet Africans, you feel like one family. So I don't think, so that's for another day. I think finally, I would like to leave a note. The Nigerian youth is my concern. The educational system they're going through now, and most important.
Yes, thank you. Alexander Idun.
Right.
Yes,
thank
please.
you very much.
Sir. Thank you. Time.
Yeah, yeah. Now, we all know that the Constitution begins with the will of the people. We, the people. And we all also know that this 1999 Constitution does not have the will of the people. So bringing in amendments does not come in at all.
Okay, sir.
So the Constitution should be dumped and burnt because it's diabolical, it's fraudulent, and it's a wicked document. So a new document with the will of the people has to emerge.
Thank you. Thank you. Powerful. Samuel Dada, you're next, please. Please, after Samuel, Sony Gold. Straight to the point, please. We want to make this engaging.
Okay,
Samuel.
okay. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Yeah,
Hey.
Samuel Dada from Italy. I want to ask a question I've heard before. When we say a total change of the Constitution, who will spearhead the total change of the Constitution? Because the National Assembly has only rights to amend the Constitution. That's to say, they have the right to review or to amend. So who will now change the Constitution? I believe the solution to our problem is to go back to 1956 Constitution that has the Federation as a weak center. So that is what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Sonny Gold and then Suleiman Lawal next. Sonny Gold, quick. Suleiman Lawal. Okay, if we don't have Sonny Gold, I'll go straight to Suleiman Lawal. If you are not ready, Adamu Mohammed, you can go next, just unmute. Okay, for Lorusha Ali. Can you hear me? Kindly.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, please. Straight to the point.
Thank you. My name is Florence Ali. Yes, I think the Constitution should be amended. The people need to have a say. From the beginning, we say we the people. That's what started the Constitution. But beyond that, I think we also need to go back to the basis for what democracy really is. People should be invited, and the elite should be guiding what goes to the Constitution. There, we get it across to the National House of Assembly, and then we take it up from there.
All right, thank you. Laura Otume, I see Laura. And after her, we have Eyiyemi Olivia. Next, please. Straight to the point with your question, please.
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Thank you. We can hear you.
I'd like to say I'm 100% with Fowles on what he said. Our problem is not really the Constitution, but the implementation. And I want to ask, for those of us who are clamoring for a 100% change, how are we sure that when we have that 100% change, we will actually be implementing 100%? We start with baby steps. So I think we should be amending and not asking for a change. And we keep discussing, if we can't make them listen to us, how are we sure that all our suggestions and all of that will actually give us results? So the question should be, how do we make the people in power listen? And how do we ensure that whatever rules we have on ground are followed by all?
All right, thank you. I'll just take two more so I can read the chats. We have some questions. So Eyeyemi, are you here, Olivia?
Good evening and thank you.
Thank you.
My question is, how long will it take realistically to overturn the constitution, and what do we need to put in place to have a new constitution initiated? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I see Zainab Yunusa. Zainab.
Yes, thank you, Cynthia. So I'm just going to follow from what the last person said, which is my question exactly. These public hearings are going to happen in the next couple of days in the zones. Is there an option to push, oh, we want a new constitution as part of what we want to be discussed? Because if we have all this conversation here, but if we can't go anywhere from here, then I think the thing is, oh, if we want a new constitution, how can we go about it? Can we leverage on these zonal hearings that are coming up in a couple of days? Can we actually push this change of constitution in any of these hearings? That's what I'd like to know.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll quickly read the chat because we need our panelists to respond. Pardon us, please, if we don't, we'll have another panel session for contributions. I see a comment from Oluyinka Oyeniji. Is 2 days planned by the National Assembly adequate for a real consideration of constitutional issues? We also have conversation from Ayan Lade. Pardon me, please. I'm uncomfortable with the recurrent use of "we have to address." What exactly do we do as citizens? Who are the real governments? We have Adedayo. The structure is important. The development in the US is a good example of how the fundamental structure of governance is important. The Constitution will determine the powers held by each arm of government. The independence of each arm of government is important. We have Elijah in agreement with Faust. Autonomy of power should be given serious attention. We have OBDK Ubani says whether the Constitution is amended or changed, the most important thing should be with the implementation of the Constitution for accountability from those vested with that responsibility. We have at Abadebayo asking at Faust, how can the issues of impunity be solved? So questions for our panelists to respond to. Novia, we need a system that empowers the electorate, a system that makes the electorate more powerful than the politician. That is the only way to end impunity. I'm just running through the questions because we have a lot of comments and I need to get back to my panel. Laura says we can discuss all we want, but if nobody listens, then we will just be making noise. The question is, how do we make them listen? How do we change the narrative, have the change, and have the change we so desire? Adamu Mohammed makes a reference to an article that's quite long. I think we should check out the article. Kasali Yusuf, question to Olisabako, but that will be for the next panel. So I would leave this question for the next panel. Alu Azeke says, those 27% people who don't think we should change our constitution are a problem. I mean, I think everyone has an opinion here. I have 1 more minute for, okay, I think there's a lot of questions and comments here, and I really want us to stick to time. So I would stop now. Very important and interesting conversations here. And I'll go back to the panel, to the panelists to just respond. How many minutes do I have? I think we can do this between 5 to 7 minutes. Pardon us, please, for those who couldn't take their questions, but thank you for keeping the questions coming in and the comments. And I think I'll start with Faust. There were lots of questions targeted at you. How do we end impunity? What role can citizens play? How can citizens engage? Lots of these questions were actually directed at you. So we have Falana, do we have you here? If you can turn on your camera, that would really,
Ask me. It's on right now.
Oh, perfect. We can see you. So the questions, what can we do? We want to end impunity. How can we engage? How can we make the system?
I think those questions are great questions, but if I'll be completely honest with you, I don't have the answer. I'm not going to lie to you. I raised it because I've identified that I think it's the principal problem. However, the answer to that I have not found. I'm not going to lie. That's why I'm throwing it here so that we can all discuss those suggestions back and forth. However, these are the options that I see possible. One, come up with an entirely new constitution. I don't know how long that process will take. Two, amend the constitution segment by segment and maybe focus on areas of accountability, as we have identified here now, that it's about actually holding people accountable because they're not following the law that is there right now. Also worthy of mentioning, there have been several amendments in the past. Actually, 2010, 2011, I think 2017 been the most recent. There have been several amendments in the past, but till now, they're still not following law. So that's another option. Maybe amend the constitution segment by segment and maybe starting by focusing on areas of accountability, stuff like that. Another option would be getting people that, because we know that most of people in power, they have coconut head, they don't really have sense. Getting people that we can truly believe in, people that have the political will to adhere to laws and to adhere to the will of the people, getting them in the legislature. I also think that the bicameral system of legislature is a waste, complete waste of resources. There's no reason why we cannot have only one chamber of legislature. There's no reason why we have up to 400 and something lawmakers collecting millions and millions and millions of naira that they have, of course, decided to pay themselves. So, yeah, I really don't have the answer. These are some of the options that I can see in my head. I don't know. We can all discuss it, and whoever knows the answer, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Folarin Falana. Sadly, we're 10 minutes above our time, so I wouldn't be able to get back to our other panelists, but honestly, sincerely to appreciate Dr. Bugaji for his contribution today, to appreciate Aniko Briggs for the amazing contribution, and Folarin Falana, pardon me, for the contribution. I think what is important today is we've expanded the conversation around constitution and the need to ensure that in the conversation we're talking about value-based politics, we're electing leaders with the right qualification, but that, as Falt mentioned, we look at the constitution as a whole document and begin section or clause by clause review of those provisions. At the end, we need a constitution that truly guarantees that every section of the society feels connected to the Nigeria dream, because our goal is to build a unified country that the people's voices are reflected in governance and policy making processes, but that leadership is central in everything that we do. Thank you so much for the amazing panelists. Thank you so much for their fantastic participation. It's been a pleasure moderating this session. I'm Cynthia Bamalu, and I look forward to the next panel. Thank you. Over to you, moderator.
Thank you very much, Cynthia, for a great panel. Thank you very much. Our next guest is Dr. Sahid Hussaini. Are you in there? Are you there? If he's not, I would move on to introduce the our second panelists, the second panel two, who have been with us since morning and have waited patiently. We thank you very much for your patience. So going on to introduce our second panel. Our second panel, we have Dr. Olise Agbakoba, SAN. He is the senior legal firm.
Apologies for that. We seem to have lost Bumi. If you give us 1 minute, we will move to our plan B. May I ask? May I ask for Hidayat Hassan? Are you there? Hi.
I am here.
You look
Thank
totally
you.
amazing and very prepared. So you have all your guests with you on screen. Do you want to move into your panel? I think we can, you can close the gap for Bumi Lawson, who seems to have lost her audio and her video at the same time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, good evening, colleagues and friends. And it's a pleasure to be moderating this panel of erudite scholars, practitioners, people who have been parts and parts of the process. So I wouldn't waste so much time, but go directly into the conversation. So I'll turn to Mr. Olisa Agbakoba, who is actually a forerunner in this whole process. Is somebody who has been parts and parcel of it and got us into where we are today. So, will you tell us that 21 years after, do we need a new constitution?
He needs to unmute.
Please, can you unmute, sir?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, now, please continue.
Right. Yeah, you asked me what's the position in 21 years. And my response would be that, unfortunately, the momentum required to bring about social change is the problem. So if you need to change a constitution, you either do it within the failed process, or you do it outside of the process. So to have a constitution altered or changed in the way we envisage really means going well outside of the structures of the existing legal system. In a way, it's a sort of a revolution. Quite whether we have the resources, the capability in civil society to do that is a question that, but I think I liked the point that Usman, my friend, made, and the point Falls made. When I was president of the Nigerian Bar Association and I invited come to our bar conference, and interesting. And his conclusion in the speech was, make no assumption that a perfect constitution means a perfect nation. So let's not assume that a perfect constitution that we all strive for means that by a flick of the switch, everything is good. And that's why I liked False's point about impunity. Because currently in the Constitution, imperfect as it is, it's not obeyed. So what's to say that the Constitution we envisage will be obeyed? So that's a question that we need to flag. The answer to it is something we should reflect on carefully. The second point I think I'd like to make is the one made so eloquently by Usman Bugaji, which is that tactically, there are critical aspects of engagement that we in civil society can hook onto. And I'm happy to hear that Fixed Politics submitted a memorandum to the National Assembly. So I feel that if there's sufficient pressure, organized pressure, right now the pressure is all scattered, it's not articulated. So if part of what Fixed Nigeria can do is to articulate critical aspects of constitutional amendment that we want to see placed in the National Assembly, that will be of benefit. So I will consider that to be tactical. Of course, what everyone desires, and again, I return to the point Usman Bugaja made about legitimacy. Part of the problem we face today is the process. So because the process is faulty, Nigerians cannot claim ownership to the Constitution. If there's a way to reverse that problem by overhauling the Constitution and bringing in a new one, that I think is the ideal. But I think if you use military terms, it's always good for a general to think through how to engage in warfare. So you have all sorts of methods of engaging. Tactically, I would say the space to engage in amendments is there. Let us take it. Strategically, the space to overturn the Constitution, if it is there, and we can generate civil society momentum, then let's take it. But to be quite honest with you, right now I don't see it. I see civil society in conflict with traditional institutions who don't speak, and they're very important. I see the religious institutions in conflict. I'm not sure where they are, whether they're on the side of the people or on the side of the government. And all of this, let us know very clearly, is about pre-Bendel politics, which Professor Richard Joseph so eloquently described years ago in a book he wrote. We're talking here about serious cash. There is no way to expect that the present political class, whether it's PDP or APC, will surrender any iota of power unless we fight them to wrestle them to the ground and to get it. So my point is there the energy for that? So as we plan towards a strategic intervention in changing the dynamics of the Nigerian state and in placing a new constitution, let's not overlook the small advantages that we can get by critical engagement. So that's my observation for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I think tactics and space, those are very, very important points we have to note and where we are. I'll now pose my question. It's actually a follow-up to Professor Ayo Ashenua, who is a professor of law. Now, importantly, does this 1999 Constitution makes it possible or impossible to actually have that new Constitution that we desire?
Thank you very much.
If now there is no space, there is no energy to push like the Benin Constitutional Conference, National Conference, where people in the Republic of Benin just went to a national conference, then they on their own upturned the whole process, got a new constitution, and even sacked the government. So let's assume that's like an impossibility. What does the law gives us the opportunity to achieve here?
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Idayat. I would say that it is impossible to get a new constitution within the current constitutional framework. And there is no constitution in this world that will be written and it will be anticipated that the constitution is going to be providing for its own overhaul. And so what the constitution says is that anything, the constitution is supreme and anything that violates the constitution is void to the extent of its inconsistency. Then Section 9 of the Constitution provides for how the Constitution can be changed, and the process is through the National Assembly. So I will submit that it is actually impossible to
get a new constitution within this constitutional framework. And it can be expected because, like I said, how does a constitution assert its supremacy and at the same time have provision for its overhaul and its complete replacement by another constitution? However, constitutions have always had the room for amendments, and that is what we have in Nigeria. I've had people say that the Nigerian constitution is vastly inadequate, it's not inclusive, its process of making was not participatory, and they would usually say, we the people. If wishes were horses, in which case beggars will be able to ride, of course I would wish for a new constitution for Nigeria. I would wish for a constitution where each and every one of us, 200 million that we are able to participate in that process. But I know that that's a practical impossibility. I know that even within my family, we're not of the same view as to what kind of constitution we would have. So I do not romanticize that participation, is necessarily going to take us with ease to where it is that we want to get to. But nonetheless, I think it's really important for us to seize the opportunities. What we should be querying, like Paul said, is that what are some of the things that the current constitutional framework allows us to have, but we're unable to have, either because we do not engage the system well enough. For example, the Constitution says that through the National Assembly, then through the state legislatures, these are people we elect. The reason we're asking for this constitutional overhaul, or we feel silenced, is the lesson really is that we are unable to hold our elected representatives to account, whether at the national level or at the state level, because the Constitution had assumed that we would be able to tell them what it is we want, then they would go to the legislature and say, this is what our people want, and then there will be voice. But unfortunately, it looks like there's that huge disconnect. And my worry, like everybody, I think most other people have said, is that who says that if we change the Constitution, we will be better able to hold, the implementers to account anymore? I think another thing that's failed us, apart from the fact that we have not been able to hold our elected representatives accountable, is the judiciary. And I'm glad at what is happening right now, which is that, the judiciary staff are at least leading that call. The bottom line is that when you have a constitutional violation, a constitutional breach, we should go to court. But because the courts have failed us, the Constitution ends up being basically, permit this word, impotent, unable to deliver, it's powerless. And so it's really very important that we look at the weak points. If we change Nigeria's constitution today, and we don't have the kind of political will, we don't have the kind of political power that enables us to hold those who are elected accountable, we will still be in trouble. And like I said, it is very clear. Somebody put up in the chat, the 27% who don't even think that the Constitution should be changed. What do we do with them absent a revolution? Absent a revolution, they will possibly go to court and establish the unconstitutionality of a process that violates the Constitution. I would say, like Olisa has said, that we have opportunities that we should actually seize right now. The opportunities are there. It's not the best, but I think that rather than just sit and see until we get a new constitution, we're not going to engage, we should actually engage this process. And through these processes, also engage the processes. One lesson, and I have to say that even for what happened and which failed with the 8th Assembly, we've learned lessons. We've learned lessons. So the whole constitutional bill lost out because everything was presented as one bill. I need to say that in this particular process, each constitutional amendment proposed, clause by clause, is being proposed as a separate bill. So effectively, what we find is that we're learning even through the failures. We're not static, we're learning through the failures and we're gaining some traction. Of course, There's still a lot more to be done. But one thing also is that I'm asking, so this process is going on, and I'm asking, we say we're civil society, we make all the noise, but how come we're not even engaging this process? There's going to be public hearing. Are we going to have live transmission of the public hearing so that the rest of Nigerians are going to be able to participate in this process? You know, we've got to do more than just talk. We've got to do more than just talk. We've got to really, we can't continue to whine. Half of Nigerians do not even know a process is ongoing. Now, if we tell them a process is ongoing, how do they observe even that process, even if they can't influence it? But
Hello? Hello, Ma. Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think given time, I think I'll pause there. I'll allow other people to speak, and then since I'll get a chance to come back.
Thank you very much, Ma. It's a panel of lawyers, but panel of doers as well. So I'll turn to my brother, Mike Ushaya, because our conversation is just going in the right direction. Mike is not just a lawyer, but Mike is part of civil society that has been part of this constitutional amendment process. So how do we get there? The tactics and the space. And it's the same thing from Mr. Agbakoba to Professor Ashenua. So please, 1999 Constitution is not citizens-led, it is not citizen-centered Constitution, but we do have the opportunity of this amendment process that is happening. How do you suggest we get there in terms of actionable, Mike? Please, you have the floor. Mike is...
I think we may have lost him, so maybe you go ahead. We try to
I'll
find
just give
where he
it
is.
to Mr. Agbakoba to start telling us and mobilizing us how we get there, really, sir.
Christ Jesus.
Hey, back to me.
Is Mike back? Mr. Agbakoba, please, you have the floor, sir.
Yeah, okay, so I think that we need to ask ourselves, what really is the problem? Now, there's a problem of process and a problem of substance. So the problem of process is that we don't own the Constitution. Let's understand that and keep it on one side. Then there's the problem of substance. Now, the problem is that the Constitution is too centrifugal. It's a pyramid. Abuja is at the top, and Abuja takes all the power in the Constitution. The Constitution has 98 items of power. 68 is exclusively for the federal government. The other 30 is shared by the federal government and the state government. But if the federal government goes into the 30, the state government has to stay away, meaning that the state government has no power. So the problem is actually quite simple. It's simply to redistribute power. It's to take away powers that do not necessarily belong at the center and relocate them to the states. So here are a couple of examples. And there are two types of redistribution that we can do of power. One is technical power, education, primary education, primary health care, driver's license, the question of marriages. All these things are in the exclusive list. I don't see what the federal government is doing arranging a marriage between me and my wife, Lillian. It's not their business. So we can easily look at some of these things that the federal government has no competence to do and transfer it to the states. And at the end of the day, quite honestly, when I had the opportunity to speak to the National Assembly Constitutional Reform Committee, I told them that if they give me the chance, I can absolutely resolve this crisis in 24 hours. But it requires an honest intent on the part of everybody. And they asked me how. And I said, how is simply to look at those 98 items of power and then ask which is best suited for the federal government. Printing currency, federal government. Central Bank of Nigeria, federal government. Defense, federal government. Those are things nobody can argue with. But the other things I have mentioned, it's state. So if we engage the National Assembly properly, we can end up in a very short time, because mark you, constitutional amendment has been ongoing since the year 1999. Obasanjo did his national conference, Jonathan did his national conference, and it's been talk and talk and talk. So I'm not interested in any further talk. I'm interested in action. Let us engage the National Assembly with whatever means and concerted pressure we can bring. Let us engage them. This thing they are doing now, this charade of going around the geopolitical zones, they have done it for 20-something years without solution. So what I would challenge Fix Nigeria to do, because the truth is, civil society right now is disorganized. So we need to see some sort of concerted energy, focused energy on the part of civil society, pressing the National Assembly on the tactical points I raised, which is amendment. Of course, I liked the example you gave of Benin Republic, when the government of the day, foolishly, when they look back at it now, I'm sure they would have said, oh, why did we have this national conference? But they called the national conference, which was absolutely hijacked by civil society, and it led to the overthrow of the government. So let us not kid ourselves. No government in Nigeria is going to organize a national conference to overthrow itself or to reduce their power. So it is up to us to organize it. And as Professor Asenwa said, the Constitution does not permit a change. So if we're looking for change, then let's be prepared. Let us be prepared for a revolution. A revolution means altering the Constitution in a way not envisaged by the Constitution. Now, that is the strategic direction that we're looking for, which I will be happy with. But as we look for that strategic direction to occur, we can, again, going back to Fal's point and the point that Usman Bugaje made, we can occupy this space by looking at those critical amendments that we can make. And I've just given the example of 98 items of power. If we start to redistribute those 98 to the appropriate states or federating units, then voila, we are beginning to arrive at a situation in which we have a more balanced federation. The problem is the federation is not balanced in terms of political power. The solution is to balance the federation by redistributing the 98 items of power equally in a way that the Nigerian Federation is stronger at the base and stronger at the top, because each component unit of the federation is doing exactly what it is supposed to do. But it's not for the federal government to be employing people at the local government. You remember at the National Assembly, I saw my brother, Festus Kayamo, arguing over employment of local government staff. And I said, here, this is a minister. This is a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria arguing over how to employ staff at the 774 local governments. Now, that's not what he's supposed to do. So if we all understand the role of government and the assigned responsibilities, I'm sure that half our problem will be resolved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Mike?
Idayat, good to see you. I hear it's your birthday today, so let me say happy birthday, Audrey.
Thank you.
It's good to be here. I'm happy that I didn't even come in at the time I was supposed to do, and I listened to Olisa Agbakoba, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. I think he has said practically everything that needs to be said. We've been in this process, you know too well, through the Citizens Forum for Constitutional Reform and a series of other efforts towards amendment of the 1999 Constitution. And now we have a chance. I agree with the learned SN when he says that we have gone through this process before. We need practical steps towards an amendment of the Constitution now, and I totally agree with him. I think the time has come when civil society particularly must return to the drawing board. I think we have been distracted. We have gone in various directions. We're pursuing issues that are probably not directly, issues that don't have a direct impact on our political process. And we need to come back, organize ourselves and see how we can engage effectively those processes that the learned SN mentions are available to us. It's not enough to say that once you change or you amend the Constitution, then we're home and dry. Hidayat, we're in this country where court judgments have been violated. We have situations where there are clear and direct provisions of the law that have been violated. We investigated huge sums of money in ensuring that we have the Freedom of Information Act. Hidayat, where are we with the Freedom of Information Act? We did the same thing with the Public Procurement Act. Where are we? These are progressive pieces of legislation, and no one would say that they are not required, but it's not enough. My point is that it is not enough to have the law, and especially a law like the Constitution. It is a law that requires a certain level of activation. And if we do not have the people and the system and the process that can help us activate the constitutional provisions that we have, even if we have the best constitution in the world, we may still not be where we ought to be. So that will be my submission for now. And if I have an opportunity to come in again, I will do so.
So I'll give 2 minutes to Professor Ashenua, and I'll come back to you, Mike, and give you 2 minutes so we can go and take our questions. And I have this very important question for you because Mr. Agbakoba has told us the importance of actually talking not just the substantive aspect of the Constitution. And one that I find the most important is that of the delivery of public goods and services, the one that actually affects all Nigerians. It affects their daily bread. It affects how they also